2024 Prime RVX 32. Let's check it out. Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel. MFJJ here with PodiumArcher.com, looking at the Prime RVX 32. These bows are supposedly rated at 340 feet a second, 4.4 pounds, 32 axle to axle, and 6 1/4 brace height. What did they do new this year? They recut the riser a little differently. Looks like the same cam, same limb assembly. They did, however, get you adjustable let-offs. 75, 80, and 85, and it's all an insert piece you put in the module. That's a nice little plus. Still using 8000 series aluminum on these, but they added a front mount pick and a rear mount integrate, and they angled the cable guard. It will reduce and lower the amount of torque and lateral movement on the cam system, much like Matthews did a couple years ago, and they did say it makes it easier to get at your arrow rest. So there is that. But without further ado, let's measure some of this stuff and see what we get. And this is in here a little funky, so I can measure the reflex, and we're going to hope we don't drop this thing on the ground. That's sitting. Oh yeah, I got you. I got you. All right, so first off, axle to axle. I'll go to this side here. So 32 and a 16th, so just barely over it. Brace height is 6 1/4. That's right on what we were saying. Overall riser length is going to be 28 inches, and reflex geometry, please don't fall, please don't fall, please don't fall. 2 inches of reflex. All right. Physical weight of 4.4 pounds, and there are some rubber accoutrement down here with a metal part, so that's probably going to make it heavier, including that. And my guess is they're probably weighing it without that bolted on there, but let's see what we come up with here. I'd say that's 2 to 3 tenths pretty easily. 4.6, yeah, so that's easily within the realm. So this bow authentically does weigh 4.4. Let's see what weight it's set at for trying it out. 71.5. Let's back her down a little bit. One thing I would like to point out on the Primes, which has been the case for several years, they do have an easy change tuning system. So these pop in and pop out, these spacers. It's a predecessor to like PSE's version of it, which I guess they actually licensed from Prime. They licensed the ability to make that. So it does make it relatively easy to move the cams back and forth. Just over shot a little bit. So from a tuning feature, that's pretty cool. And they do have a relatively wide limb set when you look at it. It's actually a pretty wide stance, so it should be relatively stable in that regard. And I want to say I think they are the only manufacturer using 8000 series aluminum on their riser. Not sure how super beneficial it is. It's harder aluminum. Dang it. So close. I need 2 tenths, please. There you go, 69.8. There's 2 tenths. Let's see how spot on their draw length is. Okay. All right. So I would say this is probably just a tiny bit over 30, but it's pretty close. I mean, 30, once again, is within the bolt hole. I'd say it's really similar to where Matthews was marking theirs at 30. And it's like the far back end of the bolt hole. So I'd say it's 30 and 1/8. That's pretty darn close. You can't complain about that too much. So relatively honest, I would say. 30 and 1/8. Okay, first 3 shots out of the RevX 32. RVX, excuse me, not RevX, my bad. RVX 32. 70 pounds, 30 inches, 350 grain arrows. This bow does draw really nicely. Like where most bows pull into a hard hump and then break over, this does not. It's almost like the hump doesn't exist and it breaks over awfully early. Which, judging off of everything I've tested over several years and how bows feel and how they cycle, there is no way this bow shoots 340. It just draws too easily to the back end. There's no way they're carrying that speed into that. There's a little tingy, a little vibration, but we'll let the vibration meter speak for how that feels. I do feel flex and a surge in the riser that tends to hang around a little bit. The grip is a creative solution to trying to keep it warm to the touch in the cold. It's bolt-on plastic cover. It's not as square-edged as I would like, and it does feel like you can move your hand around it a little bit without telling that you're moving your hand around it, which is, it won't get perfect ranks, but that's actually a really smart idea when you think about it to try to eliminate that cold weather deal. Let's try and see what kind of vibes we get. Okay, first vibration readings on the RVX 32 with 350 grain arrows. Make sure I don't get that cord tight. $16.93. That was 10.46. $12.92. So that's 10, 13. I give you like a 13.5 average. All right, here we go for speed. We're looking for 340 feet a second out of this 350 grain arrow at 70 pounds on the RVX 32. $3.22. $3.20, and I just knocked off a vein. I swear I'm not trying to aim at the exact same spot. $3.22. So we'll give you a $3.21 average. Let's see how it goes with 450s and 550s. All right, 450 grain arrows. 32, 70 pounds, 30 inches. Here we go. 288. 287. 287. All right, so 287. And 550s. Also known as Lincoln logs. $260. $262. $262. So that will give you a 262. All right. I'll write some of these down. So we got a 321 out of 340. Our weight was 4.4. Our ATA was 32. Brace was 6 1/4. Actual length was 30 1/8. And our reflex was 2 inch. 30. Okay. 4.4 weight, that's your exact weight for a 32-inch bow, but I really feel a 32-inch bow can be a little lighter than that, but it's not bad. I'll give you a 4 out of 5. ATA 32-32, and that's a decent dimension. I'd like to see I like a bow a little longer, but for what you're trying to build, I like it. Give you a 5 there. Brace is 6 1/4, spot on for what it's supposed to be. As long as you're over 6 and between 6 6.5, it's pretty good. You're an 1/8 of an inch long on your draw length. It's still really good. You're relatively accurate, but I'm not going to give you a 5 there. I'll give you a 4. 2 inches of reflex on a 32-inch bow with over 6 inch of brace height's a lot. I'm going to give you a 3 on that. I'd like to see less reflex in there. Your speed, you're 19 feet slow. You are the worst violator. I've tested at that point. So you're getting, on a 321 out of a 6 1/4 inch brace bow at 32 axle to axle, I think is also one of the slowest bows we've tested. I could be wrong, but because you're so far off, like that's a lot to fudge. It just is. You're getting a 1. Tunability. I do like the feature of being able to pop the shims out relatively easy. I'd like to see a little bit more work in that vicinity, but I'll give you a 4 because that does make the job a lot easier. You pop it in, you pop it out, change it around. Pretty simple. Bonus features. Let me grab this real quick. So you did make your own quiver attachment system that is actually relatively low profile, which I didn't touch on. I want to say it's made by Tight Spot, but the way it mounts is tighter into the bow than anybody else's, so good on you there. You did do an angled cable guard instead of straight. You did a front mount pick and a rear mount pick, and you changed your ability to have multiple let-offs. That's a decent amount of features. I'd like to see some kind of an integrated V-bar on this bow. And maybe some other things that make you unique over somebody else as opposed to copying other people's ideas in that regard. But there is a decent amount of features, so I'll give you a relatively good mark there. I do wonder why in the world this riser is cut this direction and not the other direction, because it would make sense to me if the mass is on the right-hand side of the string over here, if you were going to do something to bump it to the left to make the bow balance out a little bit more. I would think, but all in all, the bows do balance relatively well for what they are. We'll give you a 4 in features. In balance, I'll also give you a 4 because you do have most of the mass over to the one side. I would think it would balance a little better if that was over there, but outside of that, it is relatively well balanced. I do have a good back wall. I do feel it's not perfect, but it's pretty damn close, so I'll give you a 4. I'll give you a 4 for the grip. I would probably give you a 5 if it was more square edged and I could tell where my hand is on it a little more. But this is at least making a legitimate effort here into making something a little better. And the draw cycle is awesome. Like, it's super easy. I'll give you a 5 there, but that's also why you ended up here, is because it pulls like butter and you have a speed of a bow that pulls like butter. Vibration at 13.5 for a 32-inch axle to axle bow that weighs 4.4 pounds. It's actually, we're learning now that that's kind of a high number. So I'm going to give you a 3 there. It's a decent vibration, but as your bow gets lighter, your vibration goes up, and as your bow gets longer or your riser gets longer, your vibration is going to go up. That's a relatively short riser and a relatively heavy bow for that. So I would think that number could be better. Pricing in at $12.99 retail, $11.99 map. I think you're within the realm. I mean, you're a little lower than some. Let's stand up here. You're a little lower than some, but higher than others. It's not unfair. I'll give you a 4. I think I'll give you a 4 on price because I don't think you're being unrealistic. It'd be nice to see some other integrated optional features in there. I didn't touch on, but should, that this bow goes from 26 to 30 inches. It's a 32 axle to axle, 40 pound to 80 pound weights, and then there is a 65 pound option. So that means 40 peak, 50 peak, 60 peak, 70 peak, and 80 peak options. So let's add up our score and see what we get here. So that's a 23 high score and a 31 MFO. And what that means basically, this is your tangible measurables, and that's a pretty low number. But for what you're providing outside of your tangible measurables, you're doing a lot of good stuff. So you're going to see a big spread in those because of that. Definitely something to consider and look at. The bow is nice. It's a clean aesthetic. And I should touch on the fact that these guys guarantee strings for life on these bows. So every 2 years, you can have a set of strings sent to your shop and put on free of charge. Nobody else does that. That's pretty impressive. Another feature to put in the feather of their cap, and this is G5 as a company. Big company, been around a long time. Lot of history with them. They're an overall good vendor. But that's the score I give. Comment down below on if I must be like a hater or something, because I'm sure I'm going to get that. But you can't be 19 feet off and not hear about it, guys. It's just not going to happen. Sorry. Let me know what you think. Thanks.